Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council special meeting and executive session, October 3rd, 2019. Can I get a roll call?
Corporal's here.
Bennett here. Grossman, brother.
Bird here.
Let it be known that Vice Mayor Bennett is away for work and Councilwoman Holloway is away on vacation. We have established a quorum. Public comments as soon as Ms. Libby gets back up here.
Cynthia Dempster. She got past my new father. Okay. Bill Park.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Thank you for an opportunity to speak concerning item 3, the extension topic. As you know, we're actively got the building is up, enclosed, and construction on that structure and most of the site will be finished by the middle of November at the latest. And we, in just reviewing the extension discussions and all that's involved in it, we're looking for guidance because we don't know what to do necessarily. We do have the project was permitted to have septic systems installed. We have those permits and it's designed, fully designed and engineered for that. So the question is, I mean, if utilities are going to be run out there, what should be done? We don't want to necessarily get the building finished and then leave it sit with no utilities and not be able to. I mean, there's a huge capital investment there that can't just sit idle. And so we're just grappling with what to do. I know you're not necessarily making a decision tonight because you're going to get these engineering reports done and ordered and so forth, but wanted to just address the council with the question and asking for guidance on where we go from here. What, you know, from a timeline perspective, we're guessing from the level of bureaucracy involved in what you have to do to get these reports and bids and so forth, that it may take a while to get to the point where you're running lines. And so if we could learn sooner what that timeline would be, what the realistic expectation would be for delivering service to the site, and then maybe get whatever guidance from the council that we might be able to offer about what we should be doing in the meantime. Should we go ahead and install a septic system in building 1 and then do the other lines or the other lots, or maybe we'll be able to get a line there sooner. So we're just grappling with what to do and want to put that out on the public forum for consideration. So it's
I don't understand. Maybe learning sometime after Dave made us know.
maybe we could be after tonight's meeting or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nobody else has signed up, but I do have 3 emails that were submitted. First one is from Pam Green at 645 Tazewell Avenue. It says, "This is to register my support for the new leash law being considered by the Town Council. I was able to attend the Town Council meeting in August when the issue of the new leash law was discussed. I greatly appreciate the Council and the Mayor providing time for concerned Cape Charles residents to be heard on this issue. As a new homeowner in Cape Charles and an owner of 2 greyhounds, I support the proposed revised text. I believe it strikes a good balance between those of us who are dog owners and other residents who have concerns about dogs running loose in the town. I do not know if there are currently regulations in place that require landlords to notify short-term tenants/visitors of Cape Charles's ordinances regarding dogs, but I hope that visitors can be made aware of the ordinance through town signage and notification by the owners of accommodations where visitors stay. Thank you for the opportunity to let you know my views on this matter." Email from Lori Blewett. Says she's a Cape Charles homeowner of 28 years. It says, "Proposed item 4 states it shall be unlawful for any person owning or having custody of any domestic canine to permit such canine to be on the public leash, either on or off leash, or other physical restraint or electronic collar, at any time during the period from 9 a.m. through 9 p.m. between May 1 and September 15, inclusive of each year, such period hereinafter referred to as the season. Last weekend, the weekend of September 14th, 15th, there were approximately 50 people on the beach around noon. I cannot see the justification of extending the 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. past Labor Day, when 95% of the tourists have left our town. Not to mention the expense that will be involved in having new signs made for our beachfront to change the current dates. Was it a hotel or a B&B owner that suggested the extension till September 15th? Where is the justification for September 15th date? And the third one is from Joanne Bowick. It said, it's obvious that the town council has done much work regarding the leash law. My concern continues to be around item 5 and the amount of time a dog can be unleashed on the beach. Fortunately, the tourist season isn't restricted to May 1 through Labor Day. Our generally wonderful fall weather continues to bring tourists into Cape Charles well through the fall as well as early spring. The current proposal for the beach is allowing dogs to be unleashed at all times for approximately 8 months out of the year. This ignores the longer beach season and the amount of people still visiting the beach. This week I was on the beach when a gentleman was with his 3 dogs. He was paying attention to one, playing in the water, while the other 2 roamed freely out of his control. One of them approached me barking. Nothing was done by the owner to call the dog back. This happens much too frequently for anyone who spends any time on the beach. Pet owners not cleaning up after their pets is obvious throughout the town. Just go to the park or beach for examples. Trash cans have been removed from the beach, making it even less likely that unleashed dogs will be cleaned up after. A law or ordinance is only as good as its enforcement. I use the tennis courts frequently and have seen several instances in the past few weeks of dogs in the playground. I continue to encounter people in the park with dogs unleashed. I think there are people who follow the rules, and then there are people who do what they want, who do what they know they can get away with. There is no consequence or enforcement. I support a leash law, but if the town council is adamant about having unleashed dogs in Cape Charles, why not make it simple? Unleashed dogs are allowed on the beach 8 p.m. to 9 a.m., no season. This would allow dogs that are leashed on the beach after 9 a.m. and unleashed before 9 a.m. It would certainly make the messaging or signage simpler. Right now, you have conflicting messages on signs. This only leads to frustration by everyone. It can't be expected that tourists will look for a town ordinance policy on a website while they are on vacation. The beach signage is unclear and conflicting. A leash law hurts no one.
Thank you very much. Item 3A, Davenport and Company presentation.
Mayor, members of council, and Dave Rhodes from Davenport. Y'all have in front of you what will be up on the screen. There's a lot of pages, so what we thought we would do for the purposes of time is to try to give you an overview, executive summary, and perhaps highlight some of the pages, but try not to be too long-winded tonight. So by all means, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank Larry and Debbie for all their work helping us to be here tonight. So with that said, let me just sort of walk through. This is our table of contents. You can see there's 2 parts to that: an executive summary and the various sections, and then an appendix, the second part. So again, trying to give you some of the information behind the information is the thought we all's review after I leave. So a little bit of an approach, an overview. Davenport, I've been with our firm for 22 years now. I represent the home finance side, and that's what I do, work with local governments. I've had the good fortune of doing some work with y'all in the past, and we work with a majority of the towns, number of sources for this evening. Not going to pretend to say we're exactly accurate, but I think by and large, I think we have the general gist of what we needed to be able to give you some input and some thoughts for you to reflect on over the course of the next few weeks or months or whatever it takes. So that's the idea here. As part of this review, we also looked at some peer comparatives of other Virginia and regional communities. There's no perfect comparative. Every place is unique, and I remember every time I come here, my late parents used to love, they were from Richmond, and used to love bringing people over here many years ago when they were alive. So again, always a special place. I enjoy coming east. Having said that, we also tried to look at your debt portfolio. Your staff was very, very good about giving us that, and we actually think there may be a nice real refunding to talk about for cash savings purposes as one of the benefits of all this, so to say. Okay, our goals and objectives. What are we trying to do, or are we trying to do, I should say, when we put all this together? Look at some of the town's strengths and weaknesses. Look at your cash flows over the last several years, and try to really understand what the town's financial situation is. I will quickly say I think it's a very solid situation, so I don't leave anybody hanging. I think they all know that. But again, we feel like we are in good shape. But one of the things that was asked of us was to take an assessment of your reserve levels, meaning the dollars that you have there in what we call unassigned fund balance. That's what we technically call that today by the auditor's wording. Basically, it's your rainy day fund, it's your savings account, if you would. And we're going to make some recommendations as to what we think you might want to think about and some rationale for why. Towns are different than counties, they're different than cities, and they're different than authorities. So what's maybe right for Accomack or Northampton isn't necessarily the same for the town, and I'll give you a little bit of that perspective. Debt capacity analysis, what this really means is you keep within best practices what's the kind of levels of debt you might ultimately be able to take on. And then debt affordability, which is really the rubber meets the road, that is what says how much do you really have cash flow-wise to take on any debt that you happen to do. We are not in the business of telling you what to do or not to do. That's how it's small. But we are here to say what could the ramifications be, and that's the focus that we take. So, having said that, we made a series of highlights and observations, and we'd say first off, your key economic statistics, which you'll see in a few moments, compare favorably with other Virginia and regional peers, and your real estate tax rate is in line with Virginia and regional peers. Some citizens may not always feel that way, and I get all that, but in reality, it is when we look at it. Just to give you a sense, in my department that we manage, we have a little over 550 clients in 15 states, so we get to see it pretty good, if you would, a spectrum of local governments. So I'm pointing that out. Next point here is an operation. Let's talk about the general fund if you could. Your unassigned fund balance, we'll round it off here, is about $2.9 million. That's the end of fiscal year 2018. That's about 1 year's worth of your general fund operating budget, and we think that's exactly the level that you should keep, is 1 year's operating budget. It's designed to do a number of things, and your exact amount, I'll just give you a couple perspectives here. And that is number one, we realize where you're located. Where you're located is vulnerable to bad weather. It's located to the bay, the ocean, what have you, and all that comes with it. So as a result, even if a FEMA were to pay everything back, it could take up to 3-4 years. We've seen that. So that's number one. Number two is just the sheer dollars. Roughly $3 million is not, in the greater scheme of things, that large amount. We understand that's the size of your budget. But again, if something material happens as a natural disaster, again, it's not inconceivable that a $1 or $2 million hit could happen very quickly, even if you could get that back. So we think just the sheer dollars of being at around $3 million is prudent, and that was the second part of our recommendation. The third part of our recommendation is that you have, as you well know, a utility enterprise fund. However, that utility enterprise fund really doesn't have a lot of cash sitting in its fund balances. As the end of 18, I put my memory here, you had about 120 days, which is essentially a third of a year. Most strong utilities have anywhere between 1 and 2 years of cash sitting in their, we'll call it their rainy day fund. Because again, if they should get stopped or things happen, again, you want to put them in a much better position. So those three factors were part of our rationale for having you be at that level of basically 1 year's worth of the general fund budget. A couple other points we'd like to make, and this is when we looked at the cash flow of the town over the last 5 years, after we adjusted for one-time revenues and expenditures such as capital, what we saw is that by and large, we averaged a surplus of about $225,000 a year on a budget of $2.9 million or thereabouts. It's a very solid number. It's a good number. It's something I would continue to try to budget for. Having said that, we also think that a certain portion of that could responsibly go to debt service, debt capacity in the future. I will tell you, we're thinking about roughly maybe half of that. That kind of number could go towards debt capacity. The other part being the cushion you want to have if indeed there's a slowdown and things reverse. So that's one of the observations as well we make. The second point I make, or another point I should say I make, is that your debt burden is relatively low. That means the town does have some debt capacity, and your debt service in 2020 was about $150,000. So what that told us is basically, if you wanted to take roughly $100,000 of that, you could, depending upon how you did this, you could probably look at borrowing over a permanent financing of anywhere between $1.4 million and $2.8 million. We've got some scenarios later on in the book on how you could smartly do that. Again, I'm not here to go tell you to go borrow money. That's not my job. My job is to tell you that responsibly, before having to probably ask for any revenue enhancements, we think that it would not be unreasonable if you said, I would like to use $100,000 of my typical existing expenditures towards debt service. That would not be out of the norm, and it could be, again, up in that range. Okay. A couple other points here. What we think, and we can certainly confirm this with Debbie and with Larry, but basically, based upon the documents that were provided to us, it appears that there is a savings opportunity in a 2010 bond that you did. That was a specialty bond that was done. I've got to be honest, I don't remember if I worked on it with y'all. It's been too many years. I can certainly go back and look, but from what we could see, most of that was in the utility enterprise fund. That means that if there is savings and you ultimately move forward, then basically 80% of that savings, that $100,000 or thereabouts, whatever it ultimately is, would go towards the utility enterprise fund, then 20,000 would go to the general fund. So modest on the general fund, much more significant on the enterprise fund. And then lastly, the recommendation that we would make in terms of how to procure that refinancing would be to competitively go to direct bank loans. We would recommend what we've done in the past. In fact, we just did this regularly. is to go to the various banks, both regionally, nationally, and to put together and take some of the materials that we've got here and show the banks why the town is very creditworthy and why we think, again, they may want to think hard about providing you, which would be interest rates that are basically as low as you've had in the modern era. I will tell you, we're not talking about extending any debt. We're just talking about you were fortunate to have a mortgage, and your mortgage, let's say, has 12 years to run. You'd be talking about refinancing the same 12 years, that type of concept is all we're talking about. And when we talk about savings, our initial planning numbers factored in what the markets look like, and again, the direct bank loan approach allows you to test those waters, it doesn't cost you anything, and at the same time, if you don't like what you get, you don't do it. We'll see what you want to do, if anything, but I think it would be a smart move to test those waters. So, okay, so that is our executive summary. What I thought I would do, unless you want me to stop you, Mayor, is just to go through various sections and let you see for all of you what we put together. Maybe spend a moment or two on a couple of areas, but by and large, this book is 60, 70, 80 pages, and let you absorb it and take it all in and see what you want to do. So, again, this was the various things that we did, that I just talked about, and then we went into the idea that while the town does not have a credit rating, we wanted to see the various credit categories that are all called investment grade. I don't think it's necessary for the town of this size and this magnitude to go out and get a formal credit rating, but I do think that everything we thought about, the way we look at it, is to say, how would we approach recommendations to the town as if you were a very strong investment grade credit? And that was what we did as sort of the backdrop, if you would, of some of the recommendations and the thoughts. So, just to give you on this page what Virginia looks like, there is actually about 7 towns that have credit ratings. We represent all of them, Davenport and my colleagues, and I work with most of them. And you can see they, by and large, are larger. And so, again, in fact, a couple are almost like little mini cities like Leesburg and Blacksburg. You know, Leesburg has a population, I'm going to go by memory here, of almost 60,000. So again, it's bigger than a number of cities in Virginia. So you can see them, but they are very highly rated, all in that AA or AAA category, the highest you can be. Then if you go to page 12 here, we just go over rating methodologies, and interestingly, to get a very good or even a bad rating, there are 4 components. On the right-hand side, the economy and tax base, something you can't change overnight. Finances, something you can change very quickly and have control over. That's how you do your finances. That's how you do your annual budget, if you would. Your management, which is you, as well as your staff. And then finally, your debt levels and pensions. Again, interestingly enough, that's at or the lowest of the 4 categories. So they really look more to the economy and the finances than they do even debt levels these days. So again, that's one agency. S&P is another agency. They only look at debt at 10%. So a lot of people say, well, I have no debt. Do I be a AAA? The answer is no. There are no AAAs that have no debt. The reality is they don't spend any money on their local government. They're probably not in very good shape. I've been brought in to help Petersburg. Petersburg is probably the most stressed local government in Virginia. They actually have very low debt levels. Their problem wasn't debt. Their problem is the demographics as well as the finances. They couldn't manage a budget. It wasn't the debt levels they had. In fact, their enterprise fund, up until a couple of years ago, had no debt on it. They had gone the opposite way. They used all of their cash, and as a result, had no balance. They had no intergenerational equity, if you would. So they really put themselves in a tough time. They're getting better, but still ways to go. So again, then we did some peer comparatives. Hopefully, if you're not colorblind, you can see here that we have a color printer. Proud of that. We Basically, I said that somewhat fittingly, but in fairness, you can see the various places throughout the regions where you are. That's that first area there. And again, this is not by us. This was provided by VACO, Virginia Association of Counties. And then we basically looked at all of those entities that are either by budget or population somewhat akin to you. So we ended up whittling it all down to a number of peers on the right-hand side. Doesn't make what we did right or wrong, but we just tried to do some peer comparatives. We find that sometimes local governments, if they can have some peer comparatives, it's helpful to them. There's some outliers, there's some things that are, again, a good sense of what it all looks like. So let's talk about some of the key economic statistics. And I realize that by virtue of having such valuable waterfront and being so close, some of these things get skewed. You look at your median home values, again, you are considerably better than a lot of your peers. And you can see how it compares to Virginia towns, very strong. Then the full value per capita, that's when you start really looking at how it compares. It's very, very substantial. So again, that's just some of those information. It doesn't change the cash flows, but it is something that lenders look at. Next point here, unemployment though, is a little bit on the high side. Again, we use various sources. And so again, this is not us using them. If they're incorrect, again, as I mentioned, if we're giving you something that's allowed to take purposely. But again, there was a time when 5% was considered full employment or full unemployment. That's still a little bit on the high side today. But again, most of that usually ties back to the county. That's how we found a lot of times they work. Towns in Virginia, and highlands and counties. So that may not really be applicable for King Charles per se. Median family incomes though, again.
Just a question or comment on the boundary that you're looking, is anything that's ag, zip code wise, King Charles, which means it may not necessarily be in the town. So
very good point. So again, it's not always perfect apples to apples with your population. And that's the truth for you and for all the towns in Virginia. And that's how it works. So, and we get, and part of this, what makes it more difficult in Virginia, as you know, there's no city and county overlap. So you don't necessarily get them when they do their statistics. They don't do necessarily a very good job. And so it even ties back to population. It seems like we really find a bunch of changes after every census. So it's more so than other communities and other states. So that's just something that we find. Okay. Again, just want to give you a sense of that. So this one I mentioned, like your comparative tax rate. So we do two things. We not just look at your tax rate, your real estate tax rate, but then we layer on the county that you're in. So as y'all know, of course, you pay both the town and the county rate. So collectively, you can see where the dotted lines go. And again, you can compare very solidly to some of the others. And that's sort of the way that appears to work for us. All right, Moody's, I'm not going to belabor this, all the commentary, S&P, best practices, we can go back over that at some other time. We can look at that in your measure. General fund operations. So as I mentioned to you, what we did was to try to take a look at where you've been and some trending. We used 2013 as the base year and then looked at the next 5 years. And we tried to look at,
I don't think it'll work on the TV.
okay, okay, yeah, it works on the walls. But having said that, we tried to take a look at the growth trends. We did that as well. Y'all can see that. And basically, the good news then is over the last 5 to 6 years, your revenues have grown about 6.3%. Your expenditures about 6.7%. Again, all in the same range. and that was the kind of thing, a takeaway, and it provided the necessary end-of-the-year cash flows that we were able to see, and that's what you see on this page, the next page, 23. I'll just make sure I point that out, and that is right here, the adjusted excess or deficiencies, the case may be, or no deficiencies of revenues over expenditures. So I'll point that out for y'all to see. And that's why I came back and said, on average, to have about $100,000 to be allocated towards the CIP, whether it's in cash or whether it's in borrowing or some combination, did not give us cause for concern. Again, your staff knows better than we do how, let's say, 19 is shaping up and what they recommended for 20. Again, so we're lagging a little bit, but from what we can see, it looks solid. And of course, from what I just see from a visual, to me it's impressive what's happening in the town and what continues to happen when you go past it from year to year. Again, let's talk now about the fund balance. That's something that when I met with Larry and Debbie wanted me to spend a little time thinking about this, and we did. You can see here your total fund balance. What that means is there's some other pieces that are restricted for any number of reasons. The way I think about this, what I really care about is the undesignated. That's the money that's available. That's the money that you could do anything you want with, even give it back to the citizens, but we'll suggest that's not the most prudent thing to do for a number of reasons. I'm happy to answer that. But having said that, what you can see here is, again, at the end of 2018, you're right there at that 100% mark with the unassigned, and that's the focus we'd like to see stay in that mode. Now you can see what that looks like in terms of when you compare that just to sheer dollars on the left-hand side. And you can see from sheer dollars, you're basically right there about some of the Virginia budgeted peers, Virginia population peers. But when you look at it from an overall towns that are highly rated, you're much lower than that. So we don't want to get too low in pure dollars. On the right-hand side, given the size that your budget's modest, it's a very solid number. But you can see there, it's not out of the realm. Colonial Beach, the Smithfields, Dumfries, all of them have very solid unassigned fund balances, somewhat akin to that. And for example, something that we didn't put in, we could have Middleburg, Virginia, which is on the other end of the state and up in Northern Virginia. Very, very nice town. It's somewhat akin to y'all because it is reliant on tourism. It's Salamander, if you know what I'm talking about, which is an incredible 5-star hotel. It is sort of it's the big engine. They have, that we recommended for them that their unassigned fund balance be 150% of their town's operations, and they're right now about 175. So again, it's not like you're going to be the most by any means, but that's the kind of numbers, and they're heavily reliant on things. I've worked in Williamsburg now for probably 30 years, and Williamsburg has an unassigned fund balance upwards in the 60s, all because it's so tourism driven, so specialty driven, is the way we typically look at it. Okay, some more policies, discussions. These are just some of the policies of some of those folks that we cited. So the goal is to give you some nighttime reading, make sure you don't have any problems going to sleep tonight. But having said that, at least this is some of the backup plus the appendix to give some of the substance of what I was just giving you in a very quick blow by. So let's talk about your debt and your profile. Again, we look at a couple of policies. Debt versus full value, that means can I borrow this and do it within, again, best practices. And then debt service versus expenditures, can I afford this? How big's your credit card? How many pennies of every dollar are we going to spend, or should you not think of exceeding with regard to your, in effect, your credit card? So this is what your debt looks like in the general fund. lastly, general fund, that's separate from the utility program that you did. So you can see here that you only have about $1 million of debt outstanding. Again, as of 2019, again, 6/30/2019, that was now 4 months ago. So that may change a little bit, but the point here is you've got all of your debts effectively paid off by in a decade, 2034 to be exact, with those last couple of years a de minimis amount of debt. So really, over the next 10 to 12 years, all of your debt is paid off. That's a very, very good thing to be in that situation, and it gives you some opportunities to think about it as it steps down over the next several years to, if you want to, if you need to, do some capital projects. So, here's a couple of factors, give you a sense of your debt levels. Debt to that assessed value is a critical one for ratings and for debt services. Anything under 0.75 is considered AAA, as high as it gets. You are basically half of that, less than half of that. You're at 0.3, okay? And you can see where the peers are, and some of your budgeted peers, they're in that moderate to strong category, and you're well into that very strong category, the highest. Now, you change a little bit with some debt being added, but you still would be very much in that second strong category. So you can see some policies here. And then the debt service to expenditures, as best as we can tell, in 2020, the fiscal year that we're in right now, you pay about 6% of the general fund budget goes to debt. Again, how does that compare to Virginia towns? It's very, very good. They tend to be hovering around 10 to 11%. That's what they tend to be. And if you were to add that debt, that $100,000 or so dollars, you would then fall more into line with typical Virginia towns. So again, nothing out of the realm of the ordinary, which is to give you a perspective of that. Policies, so we get the debt capacities and scenarios. Again, this is us breaking down all of your debt, breaking down your cash flows, talking about that $100,000 to use. And what was interesting is we said to ourselves, there's no one way to borrow money responsibly. But if you were to look at going straight to permanent financing, what would your capacity be with that $100,000? But if you did something a little more creative, and you did some interim financing for 3 years, then converted with some structuring, still being at 20 years, your debt capacity basically doubles. So we have 2 scenarios. The interesting thing is the maximum debt under either scenario is $250,000. Why do I say that? Because right now your debt you're paying is about $150,000, and you would basically go like $100,000 one way or another, and we're going to jump over it. And what we're showing here is scenario 1 versus scenario 2. Either way, the final maturity is 2043, which is roughly a little over 20 years. But what's interesting is in the right-hand side, you could take on twice the level of debt with the same $100,000. In this current environment, we assume an interest rate long-term of 4%. Just to give you a sense of that, if we were to do long-term debt today for you, probably be below 3%. I mean, it's a very strong environment, which you may know. But we still added to it in terms of being conservative. So, almost done here. I appreciate this. Timetable for action. Again, we just wanted to show you the way we've seen the town. And again, to suggest that you think about some of these things, when you think about formalizing and implementing some of your policies, and adding some of your policies, and at the same time, we would recommend and be happy to work and talk about looking at some refinancing, none of which was factored into any of the numbers purposely. They won't make a big change, but they're a small change. There's a modest positive, there's no negative that comes out of that. So that was really what we did. Again, look at the enterprise fund as well, and I said, they are days cash on hand. In 2018 jumped to about 113. That's not a lot. It sounds like a lot, it's not a lot. So I want to point that out. Again, you can see where it jumped up. You look at all the cash flows, the history of it. And again, some more policies. Also, with the debt profile, that of course, much larger debt, which is why that 2010 bond that we call the research, that bond is where 80% of the savings would come to there, 20% of the general fund, if the markets held in where they've been. The other two bonds didn't have any appreciable savings, so we wouldn't recommend doing anything. So there's the details of the savings, the estimates. The way you know, it's not my word, we just give that out, and that's how you do that. So you put it in the competition, and anyone could bid, and if you like what you get, fine. If you don't do it. It's that simple. But you can see there, that was the cash flow. We did the refunding analysis on all of your debt, and that's what you're looking at. Those are positives. The others are the negatives, or too small to produce what we call a meaningful present value savings. The key here is you don't want to just be churning some financing so that people can make money. That's not the focus. So there's some guidelines, the guidelines that we use, the state guidelines, which is 3% present value savings. Just so you can see here, yours are roughly twice that level. If you move forward on that, you're twice the state's generally accepted level.
That one almost covered, if we decided to say we hypothetically did up to 24, that one almost covered that debt service, the savings. Close, right?
In one year, because remember, that's the savings, 100,000 over the balance of the year.
Okay. Who would take care of the first year?
Well, and we can't get it all in the first year because of the principal structure. But again, it's a positive. But it's also, again, that's really the enterprise fund where you see those savings. So all that'll do is that'll put a little less pressure on your rates. Or think of it this way, it'll probably put $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year more into building up your cash reserves. Or cash to do other things with if you want to do. So that's the way to think about it. There's no negatives, you can use it in a number of ways. And that's it. So our recommendation is a direct bank loan, competitively done, and we do that on a regular basis. And we can help you if you want us to. That's y'all's call, of course. And then you still need a bond counsel, which is to make sure that all is done according to the tax laws, both your laws, the federal laws, and state laws. So, that's really next steps. I've kind of given you some elements of that. And that's really about it. Some more details, some more background. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I got one thing first.
So initially you were talking about the enterprise fund and you're really talking about utilities. Does the enterprise fund include the harbor, wastewater, sanitation? Does it include all enterprise funds, or does it just?
It does. But for this particular, the gains, the 80,000, that's for utility.
Right, but in the general,
Right, in the general.
all the enterprise funds.
Yeah, the question is, you went through material here. I've looked through capital improvement programs of the city and towns. And in it, sometimes they'll have debt limits where the town has established that. And I don't believe we have that kind of structure, or I'm just asking.
So you have, by state law, 10% of assessed value is the maximum that you can borrow. So that's sort of the limitation. So you are so far underneath that.
Yeah, but I'm saying other towns have that too, but they set something even lower.
Yes, and that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying to you earlier. Exactly. You've got it. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. That's, so you can go to 10%, we didn't have that, it's not a graphic.
Yeah, right.
And you can see where your peers go. Smaller, Virginia towns, you can see there, they tend to be 0.5 to 1.5%. But bigger places, bigger cities and towns, and cities in Virginia, they'll get upwards of 2.5%. They're allowed to go to 10.
Right.
Go to 10. And there's a few that do, because they have a low base of value, but have a fair amount of debt. So someone like Bristol, which I work with and have for a long time, a very lovely community, they're right there on the border, but they're always hovering around 10%. Where it works.
But would you recommend that we do set it in policy, whatever that
Yes,
number is?
I would.
Okay.
But I think the real driver's wrong word, the real governor of the driver will be the next policy, and that is the debt to expenditures, your credit card. And I say that because in fairness, your budget is only so big, but you've got a lot of value here, by virtue of the values that. So you could I could easily see, if you go down to 10%, just affording to pay for that debt service would blow you so far over the expenditures. I mean, it's not even, we don't even need to calculate it, it would be so high. So from that perspective, yes, we would recommend policies for both. You could talk to your staff about them. But again, you're coming from a good position right now.
Yeah, okay. Well, I see that.
A couple of years ago, it was that good. The value of it is
Anybody else got any questions?
No, this was thorough. This is good.
Can I ask one? That $100,000 gain, is that net of the bond council costs?
Of course, so our policy, yes, we did.
Councilman Burge?
That's what we made that.
I just wanted to, if I had to recap the main points of what we heard, just that there's so much detail here. Thank you for doing this, Mr. Rose, for us. Main points. We are in a good financial position now, strong financial position for a town of our size, especially when compared to our peers. So they're, okay. Two, we can afford to take on debt. Whether we do or not, this is not your issue, but as a policy matter, we could, somewhere between 1.4 and 2 point something. That we could afford to do that without even refinancing existing bonds from 2010. But if we did, we could achieve about $100,000 over the time period, the rest of the time period of those bonds. Right? And if we refinance those, which are enterprise fund bonds,
A little both, but mostly enterprise.
but mostly, probably 80% of that savings should be reflected in the enterprise funds. Should necessarily has to be, right? And then just really would add to our reserves. That's how I see that. That's probably the best way. It's not a whole lot of money, but it helps, right? Okay. And so I wrote down our current debt savings. I don't know why we're at 150,000. Does that ring a bell to you? Why I wrote that down?
I think you wrote that because that's the annual debt service
Okay.
that you have right now
Current debt
on
service
your
is
general fund.
on the general fund. Okay.
That's your current debt service level, yes.
Okay, so I'm taking notes as fast as you're
I'm
talking.
sorry, I figured y'all don't want me to be too long.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I got one more. It's this in a PDF form, so our treasurer can upload it to.
You're welcome to, yeah, from our perspective, you do whatever you want with it, put it on your on the website, it's yours, it's public information, and we are very comfortable having you use it or go out it.
Well, Ms. Rose, thank you very much. We appreciate it for all the hard work, and this is very useful. Thank you. All right, up next, leash law.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the final legislation, text amendments to the town code for the domestic canines in public places. It's appeared, but which I can read as much or as little of the public record as possible. Section 1, A1 puts the state code in context with our local ordinance. Section 2 speaks to the general prohibition of any domestic canine to be off leash or physical restraint or electronic collar or entered in public street, sidewalk, alley, plaza, or other thoroughfare. Section 3 speaks to specific public facilities where domestic canines are prohibited at all times, and that is the town office, public works and utilities facilities, the civic center, the library, tennis courts, and the children's playground. Section 4 speaks to the period of time, both on the calendar and also hours of operation for the fishing pier. The fishing pier, as you remember, was sort of broken out as a specific facility to take into consideration because of the periods of use and non-use. Section 5 speaks to the issue on the beach, where the season is described as May 1 to Labor Day, inclusive of each day as the season, and the period of time of exclusion from 9 a.m. through 8 p.m. Section 6 speaks to Central Park. Again, the general prohibition of animals being off a leash or physical restraint or electronic collar, except again within the context of a town facility use form for specific events and activities which may either allow or not allow canines as a depending on the use. And again, Section 7 prohibits or exempts service dogs as recognized as regulated animals already, so they're exempt from this section. And the language for the violation does not change. That's a class 1 misdemeanor on conviction of any violation. Staff's recommendation is to adopt the ordinance through the amendment or through the attached ordinance effective January 1, 2020.
We have a recommendation to adopt.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-1003 and make it effective January 1st, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think it's important to note all of the very meaningful public input that's come into working on this, and thanks staff for trying to synthesize all of that, plus the conversations that we've had. But I think the session particularly, when we had a lot of citizen input, was very helpful to the process.
Any more discussion? I move for the adoption of ordinance 2019-1003, regulations of domestic animals in public places, as noticed if we go to read of the ordinance. Roll call vote.
Buckles, yes.
And yes.
Rosen, yes.
Burge, yes.
Let it be noted that passed unanimously. Item 3C, wastewater extension.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the specifics of 3C is to contact the Eastern Shore Virginia Public Services Authority to transfer the current engineering contract held by them, the Kirk and Profit engineering firm, to complete the engineering design of extension of utilities from the 30%, which is currently completed, to 100% for the extension of the utility lines to service the current unserviced area proposed in the R3 district, which is the development that Mr. Parr and Mr. Manuel have been working on, again, currently approved for well and septic within the town boundaries. As council wishes, that current contract limitations or terms can be amended to include either the Keckwell site, also unserviced, or all the way to the town edge or town limits, which again, all the way to the extension down there, Old Cape Charles Road, is also not serviced. So this is specifically about contacting the Public Service Authority to transfer the contract work from them to the town. After that, it would be discussion with Kirk and Profit as a contract amendment to determine where the utility line ends. Again, staff's recommendation would be to run it to the town limit. But that's certainly council's discretion to make the determination where the scope of work would end.
So, to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion that council authorize town manager to request the Public Service Authority to assign H&P contract to the town.
All in favor?
All right.
Discussion.
Discussion?
Larry, could you elaborate a little bit on the plans for the 30% completion that they already started on? Because I'm not familiar with what's already out there. Because I mean, I'm in favor of having her cover, but just to elaborate on, this could give us a little head start on something, but I don't know what. I don't know what the 30% represent.
This was several years ago, the Public Service Authority had proposed, and again, this was extraterritorial, this was within the county of Cape Charles as well as outside of the county of Cape Charles, to extend the service lines, I believe, all the way to Highway 13.
Okay.
So certainly the Kentwell site was one of those included within the town boundary, but the project never moved forward. The town actually, at some point, I believe in 2015 or 2016, removed support for the PSA, and that line, those preliminary drawings were never completed past 30% completion stage. So as a result, we've got something, and included a competent cost estimate.
Okay.
So
it's really a line from town all the way out. Okay. Thanks.
which would be an extraterritorial service authority's interest, but it wouldn't necessarily be the town's interest to run a utility line outside the town boundary.
I understand. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So from this, we were talking before, the next step then, if we do get the signed contract, we'll ask for a proposal from them as to what it will take to take it to different sections of town.
Correct. If that's council's perspective or request to do it that way, we could do several scenarios as well.
Well,
Cost estimate
yeah.
to the R3 district, a cost estimate to include the Keckwell, knowing that we can't do anything on the Keckwell because of the development limitations through 2023. But after 2023, the Keckwell property is open for a variety of types of development, or to do it right to the town edge.
Yeah, so I'm for the different scenarios in scoping out. I'm just saying the next step, we'll see an engineering estimate to do that site.
Correct.
Or to complete the site. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I want.
Can I get a motion to go in recess?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you all very much.